didn't get a walk-on song, but the chaplain did. Send a note to me. Well, good morning, and again, thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. And just a few little comments, and then I'll make some panel introductions, and we'll get right into the discussion. Of course, our panel discussion is, as announced, what changes are community leaders making to meet the global security demands. And, you know, for as long as I can remember, there was always that tension between readiness for today and building for tomorrow. We always had that. But now I think things are a little different. One thing that's not different is that the service chiefs, as always, have strict budget constraints. They also have to plan for a global force, and they have to take the long view. The geographic combatant commanders, on the other hand, do not have the same strict balance requirements for budget. They take a regional view, not global, and they take a shorter view on timeline. Usually they're 2 or 3 years, but sometimes their timeline is like 1300 today. So there's some tension there, always has been. The services build the forces and the capabilities, and the COCOMs assume them. The right now problem is changing day to day with developments in the Ukraine, where we have lessons learned, Gaza, Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, and of course the pacing threat in the South China Sea and other places. Each of these has different lessons learned and have different timelines. So it's not just about near versus far, it's a complex puzzle of solutions that differs in timeline and scope across theaters. In some cases, there's also competition for industry of what to build. Do you build the thing for the now, for the right now, or do you build the thing for a little bit later? Who's going to make it a little bit later, a little bit later? So today's panel contains the service leaders who define and execute the all-important man training and equip function. They're kind of at the center of solving this complex puzzle. And in addition, they have to deal with other constraints. So CNO just spoke, and she mentioned that it's the sense of Congress that we could use some more platforms. 355s have been bandied about for 5, 6, 7 years. It's the sense of Congress that we need more support. But I would only say to that, give us a budget. Give us a budget, not a CR, a budget that funds you to the level to meet the demand. So let me get started here with our great panel. First year at Lieutenant General Heckel, career Marine, Naval Aviator. He's commanded Marines at the squadron, wing, and Marine Expeditionary Force level with service in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Lieutenant General Heckel commanded Marine Medium Tiltrotor Squadron 162, which included a combat tour in Iraq in 2008. From 2018 to 2020, he served as the commanding general, 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing, and subsequently commanded 1 MEF through September 21. He's been the commanding general, Marine Corps Combat Development Command, and deputy commandant for Combat Development Integration, Headquarters Marine Corps, since September 21. He's been a key player in Force Design 2030 and Marine Corps modernization efforts. Next to him is Vice Admiral Dan Cheever, a career Naval Aviator. Vice Admiral Cheever has commanded at the squadron, that's VFA 147, the wing, Carrier Air Wing 8, and the strike group, Carrier Strike Group 4 level. He was the battle director at the Combined Air and Space Operations Center at U.S. Central Command in 2011. His short tours include Commander, Naval Aviation Warfighting Development Center, multiple tours at Top Gun, aide to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, where I met him. Prior to taking his current position, Vice Admiral Cheever served as Director of J5, Strategy, Policy, and Plans, and Chief of Staff, North American Aerospace Defense Command in the United States Northern Command. He's just assumed command as Commander, Naval Air Forces Air Boss, and Commander, Naval Air Forces Pacific. Next, Admiral Cheever, we have Ms. Liz Nashel, Senior Executive Service. As the Deputy Commander, Naval Information Forces, Ms. Nashel is responsible for the man, training, and equip function for Navy information, warfare, and Fleet C-5 ISR capabilities assigned to the 88 subordinate commands, Operation Short Commands, manned by more than 21,000 IW personnel operating across the globe, both ashore and afloat. In 1991, USNA grad, she initially served on active duty as a Civil Engineering Corps officer, and after leaving active duty in 2002, continued to serve in various roles involving planning, policy, and engineering roles in the fleet. In 2016, Ms. Nashel was selected for appointment to Senior Executive Service, where she was installed as the Director for Fleet Installations and Environment in 46 U.S. Fleet Forces. Ms. Nashel has served as a Deputy Commander NAV I-4 since 2019. Next, we have Vice Admiral Brendan McLean, career Surface Warfare Officer, who's commanded at all levels. He commanded USS Carney, you might see some themes here, USS Carney DDG-64 during an operational deployment in the 5th Fleet. In Major Command, he served as Commander, Destroyer Squadron 50, forward deployed in Bahrain in 5th Fleet. He also commanded Task Force 55, Coalition Task Force 152 in 5th Fleet. He deployed to Iraq, the U.S. Army's 354th Civil Affairs Brigade, ran the Israel desk and the J-5 director of the U.S. European Command, and directed the 6th Fleet Maritime Operations Center. As a flag officer, Vice Admiral McLean led the Naval Recruiting Command, Carrier Strike Group 10, and commanded Naval Surface Forces Atlantic. He assumed duties as Commander Naval Surface Forces SWOBOS and Commander Naval Surface Force Pacific, 21 December 2023. Next, we have Rear Admiral Brad Andros, career Explosive Ordnance Disposal Officer. Rear Admiral Andros served in operational tours aboard USS Safeguard, ARS-50, and EOD Mobile Unit 11, EOD and Mine Countermeasures Officer for Cruiser Destroyer Group 5, EOD Officer for Commander of the 5th Fleet, and Executive Officer, EOD Mobile Unit 6, and commanded EOD Mobile Unit 8 in North Spain. His Major Command was Commander, Navy Expeditionary Command, Central Command, Task Force 56, where he was responsible for the deployment of Navy Expeditionary Forces in the Middle East. Admiral Andros' first flag officer assignment was as Director, Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction in J-10 of the U.S. Special Operations Command. He assumed duties as Commander, Navy Expedition Combat Command, 20 September 2022. Finally, but not least, we have Rear Admiral Keith Davis, who's a Special Warfare Officer whose operational tours include platoon commander tours at SEAL Team 2, element leader and squadron operations tours at the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, XO of SEAL Team 7, commanding officer of SEAL Team 1, and commander of Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force, Iraq. He made numerous operational deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, the Pacific, and Europe, and his short tours include military aid to the President of the United States, Director of Training at the Naval Special Warfare Center, and Director of the White House Military Office. Admiral Davis most recently served as Commander of the Special Operations Command in the South. He now serves as Commander of the Naval Special Warfare Command since 19 August 22. So a lot of introductions, but great to hear from all these leaders who have to make all these very important choices. And the first question I'd like to put to the panel, and I'll just start here from General Heckel down the line on this one, And the first question is, given the current global security landscape, can you tell us your top 3 warfighting priorities? Has the war in Ukraine and the situation in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden caused you to adjust your tactics, operations, and requirements to address evolving demands?
Hey, sir, thanks a lot. And to everybody, I just want to say thanks for taking time to be here with us. And I particularly would like to start off with thanking industry partners. The one thing I've learned in this job, not being an operator, but being a kind of a staff pogue, is that I've learned going on 3 years that it has become acutely aware to me that without our industry partners, we're in big trouble. And we still got a lot of work ahead of us, but thank you for being here. These kind of forums really, really help. So again, Force Design's been going on for a while. I would say the priorities haven't changed much. Admiral Daly, maritime mobility and maneuver is, and I'm going to put 3 out there, and I don't know if I would say they're in order because they change almost every day in my head, depending on the world. So I'd say maritime mobility, contested logistics, and then continuing to close kill webs, right? So establishing, enabling, and then closing kill webs, which really when we started out on the Force Design journey, that was kind of the priority. Now they've changed. The pacing effort in Force Design is contested logistics. It's the hardest thing we do, and it affects everything else in Force Design. And we're working hard getting after that. I would say that not so much in TTP, sir, but with where I am, my sense of the things we've put underway in Force Design, that what we're seeing so as you know, Force Design, small, mobile, lethal, agile, low signature Marines is a stand-in force executing expeditionary advanced space operations, focusing on, from the very beginning in 2019, key maritime terrain. And I want you to think about what's happening right now in the Red Sea, what's happening in the Black Sea, what we saw happen to a guided missile destroyer at the end of January with unmanned surface vessels, basically a bunch of jet skis, and how it's altered international trade. We know, I think I read an article last week about an average container. The average cost now has been added about $1 million per container. And we're going to see costs. I've got data in here I'm not going to pull through. But we've seen everything increase. So I would say, from my perspective, these 3 priorities right now, underpinning everything we're doing within Force Design, I would say looking at what's happening in the Red Sea and the Black Sea, focusing on key maritime terrain, which dramatically affects logistics, dramatically reflects our sustainment efforts. And you heard the CNO say this morning, talking about free and open international order, right? All being threatened. So I think, from my perspective, sort of kind of informs my thinking that we're headed in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you. I'd go to Admiral Cheever next, please.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. To say I'm excited to be the 10th Air Boss in naval aviation is an understatement after 5 months of standing by. During that time, I got a unique opportunity to visit industry across, so I want to thank them for showing me what they have, where they're going with technology, and how they're maintaining contract, cost, performance, and schedule. Really appreciate that, because together we have to get there. Top 3, I'm pretty simple, and I'm just smart enough to align with my seniors, so it's warfighting, warfighters, and the foundation that supports them. For warfighting, high-end, live, virtual, constructive training to get after that warfighting. Warfighters, how we treat our sailors, expectations, and what we demand of our team is behind that. And then for the Red Sea, yes, we're learning a ton out there. Rear Admiral Stem Miguez has sent us a mid-cruise update. Fantastic. The learning that's going on is rapid. Most of it I cannot talk about in here, but it is rapid learning. I will also mention that the Ford that just returned, our indispensable carrier with incredible capacity, is back, and we learned just a ton. Very successful first deployment for the USS Ford, and we're learning rapidly from Vincent and the TR strike groups that are out there with our teammates from surface warfare, and I'll just say all domain, because anytime a carrier strike group goes anywhere, it's space, cyber, subsurface, surface warfare, electromagnetic spectrum, the whole 9 yards. So learning rapidly. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Next is Nashville from I-4.
Good morning, everybody. Liz Nashville here, representing Vice Admiral Ashbeck, IBOS, who was unable to be here today. So I'm going to talk about her priorities as a TAGCOM, and actually to tag on to Admiral Cheever with respect to warfighting, warfighters, and the foundation. It's training, training, and training. And specifically for us at NIVI4, IW is in increasingly high demand. And as a TACOM, we're working to keep up. And so one of the key focus areas that we really need to accelerate along with my TACOM brethren here is IW and LVC. So live virtual constructive training is very important to us. So when you think about information warfare and you think about the IW capabilities, there's a lot about IW that we can't, we actually may not have the authorities to test in a live environment. We don't have the spectrum authorities to do that, and so we can't build up the proficiency as we try to train to those because we can't train to those. In other cases, we actually don't want to reveal our capabilities, and so the LVC environment will give us the opportunity to not only practice but also become proficient in those capabilities. And then the other is we really need to bring the totality of IW capabilities together so we can actually test and integrate and allow our sailors to work through them once, twice, 3 times and become proficient and actually innovate and see how those capabilities can work together to really up our game. And then finally, it's the metrics piece, is we need to be able to measure our sailors' performance, and we need to look at team performance and look at teams' performance relative to each other. And so when I think about our TACOM and what Admiral Ashbeck's been focused on since she's taken the job, it's IW and LVC and training overall.
Thank you. Next, Vice Admiral Mike.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and greetings to all the shipmates, old and new, out in the audience. Great to see everybody. And on the priorities, I join General Heckel in saying the priorities have remained the same. It's the urgency and the speed with which we are getting after them that is increased. And I would say the number one priority for surface warfare is achieving excellence in fleet introduction of new weapon systems and new technologies. Just directed energy weapons, integrated combat systems, conventional prompt strike, unmanned, and additive manufacturing are some of the things that we really need to get right and get onto our ships as quickly as possible. And then the second part is leveraging what we already have to our maximum warfighting advantage. And we do that with a speed now that we haven't done before. The communication that we're having with our ships in the Red Sea, getting that information back to our Naval Surface Warfare and Mine Development Command, getting that turned around quickly, and then back to the ships on how to best tune our radars so that they're optimized for performance in the Red Sea, and then incorporating updated tactics and TTPs into SWATs on both coasts, as well as Comp2Xs. So that is happening at speed that we haven't done before, that fast iteration for our warfighters who are living in the weapons engagement zone every day right now. And then the third piece is the foundation. And that's where our industry partners come in really big. I was just talking to Howard Burkhoff yesterday, PEO IWS deputy. They have stood up a Red Sea cell with industry together, where if you can kind of think about, we're getting the data from the ships, we're working that through our computers here and then getting that back to them on how to best tune the radars. They are looking at how do we update the radar software better and then get that back out over the air to the ships.
Thank you. Next, Admiral Andros.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Again, thanks to everybody that's here and for industry, and I'd like to thank industry from NECC, because basically since our inception we've been focused on, and a lot of our equipment that we use, a lot of the pieces of gear that are out in the world and our sailors operate have been commercial off the shelf, and haven't really started with big programs, but it's been the innovation of industry that we've adapted to the environment that we were called to go to war in. So that leads me to NECC. Stood up in 2006 timeframe, and really a response to the global war on terrorism, OIF, OEF. And that's been our model, is how do we go after a known place, a known time, and a slightly evolving threat to generate forces to go into that environment. And so the world's changed. We're not doing global war on terrorism anymore. We don't know how much the Joint Force is going to need. We don't know how much the Navy is going to need. We have a pretty good idea. I think we're in the right ballpark with that one. So that's the first tenet and the first priority that I have is building up the capacity of our force and the confidence of our force and what we're generating so that we can get out the door and meet the needs and be able to sustain that while that's in the field. The second priority is building confident teams with war-fighting sailors. And what I mean by this is getting them the skills and the understanding of what's different about being expeditionary from being in the fleet and what those different skills are. And so that they're a member of really small teams now. They have to know their job, and everybody on that team is relying on them to do their job with exquisite confidence. And then the last one is an equipment pillar. Again, I started this with we got a lot of things that were commercial off the shelf. What that means now is when I go in the cupboard, I've got a lot of different things. And some of it's complex, and a lot of it was built to operate in a really mature logistics environment. And when I look at what we're going to be asked to do in the future, I got to simplify the equipment we have, manage the configuration so I don't have lots of different things, and balance it more towards operational level maintenance over intermediate or depot. And so when I look at the Red Sea and Ukraine right now, it's what's going on in the world, what is the tech that's being used, and how do we adopt it? Because again, a lot of the stuff that we built and the forces that we have are against an asymmetric threat that was only on the surface. And so now we're looking subsea up into the air. So thanks, and I look forward to questions.
Thank you. Admiral Davids, over to you.
All right, thank you, Admiral Daly. Great to be with you today, and great to see so many former teammates, mentors, friends. I'll echo Admiral Andrews' comments about the partnership with industry. I think there's nothing like an existential threat to sort of drive innovation and partnership. And for those of us that have been engaged on the ground war for the last 20-some years, you know, I know the partners in this room have helped us come home and have saved a ton of American lives. And so thanks for that. With regard to priorities, you know, really it's been force generation and optimizing for our primary purpose organizationally, which is warfighting. And we've optimized over the last 20 years for sort of a counterterrorism focus, and now we're kind of prioritizing differently, and really, which leads into the second priority, which is integration with the fleet and the joint force. To a degree I've never seen before, and it's not just because I was married to the former SWO boss. No, look, I'm really energized. I feel like I'm back in the Navy in a big way, and that's, you know, these are decisions that my predecessors made to kind of get us back with the fleet. But we're doing it now to a degree I've not seen in my 33 plus years of commissioned service. And so we're generating forces differently. We still need the people of character and competence. We still need problem solvers. We need people that don't quit. But we need them to not just do point target raids. We need them now to work in support of the fleet and the joint force. So if you were to go watch a Naval Special Warfare culminating training event, even just a couple of years ago, it might look like a point target raid against a fixed site. And if you saw one today, it might look a lot like I am working in support of the fleet. So we, for 20 plus years, I think, have gotten used to being the supported effort. And now we're largely in support of naval maneuver and power projection. But a more recent culminating event for our SEAL teams or boat teams might look like support to the SWO boss in terms of closing kill chains with over-the-horizon targeting. It might look like maritime deception. It might look like support to the air boss in terms of denying the electromagnetic spectrum. So I guess what I'd offer is it's just a new way of using a very capable force. And it turns out a lot of people sort of think counterterrorism is over here and competition and crisis and conflict over here. But the reality is, 20 years of sustained combat, I think we've actually learned a lot. We've learned a lot about joint fires, both kinetic and non-kinetic. We've learned about the importance of information. We've learned about integrating partners and different authorities and capabilities. And we learned we're way more effective as a joint force and working with the intelligence community than we are singularly. We've learned about the power of fusing ops and intel. So all those things, I think have great relevance across the threat spectrum. The other thing I would offer is that, we got really good at sort of network targeting, I'll call it, right? We're really good at hunting people and terrorist networks. It turns out those methodologies actually apply. But now you apply that same methodology against systems, not just people, and it turns out we can have great effect. And so the other piece, the other priority is really innovation, okay? But not just broadly. I guess the priority for me, I think NSW's value proposition to the Navy is that we are small. We have the ability to operate forward. We've invested in low signature capability. We've got good waveforms. Many of you have delivered us great tools that give us a better chance of being able to operate undetected, and that's all good. Our challenge is scale, right? So how do you mass effects without massing force? And so where I'm asking for help is help me do that. Help me take a sniper pair and look like a battalion, right? Or whatever, things like that. And so creating mass without putting mass out forward because of the challenges with sustainment. Finally, sir, you asked about the security environment. I would offer it just looks very different depending on where you are in the world. So your Naval Special Warfare teammates are forward in 37 countries today, and it looks different if you're in Africa or the Middle East, and we're still doing counterterrorism because someone has to do that. But increasingly, we're prioritizing support to competition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Admiral Davids got into the force generation piece, which was my next question. So he kind of answered it for special warfare or naval special warfare. But I'd like to put to the rest of the panel, are we making sufficient progress on force generation? And is the current model for force generation working for you? Are we flexible enough to adapt and incorporate change? And are we able to do that also while sustaining the ability to force generate overall, to increase capability and sustain overall? I'll start with General Heckel.
Well, sir, it kind of gets back to your point the comments you opened up with about the tension between readiness today and being properly man-trained, equipped, and prepared for the future. And I think all of these things, all of these tensions, all of these pressures operate simultaneously. I think right now we're actually conducting, the Marine Corps has conducted stress on the force, OPT, to kind of get to determining some aspects of where these pressures are coming from and how we can mitigate those things. And I will tell you that from a force design perspective, again, being my responsibility and shooting on the target that I know, we've actually had to alter force design somewhat to meet global force management requirements. So I would say...
Are you talking about special purpose MAGTFs?
That, and we altered the number of, for instance, tilt rotor squadrons. We had to bring 2 back. General Berger had to bring 2 back. We simply didn't have the flags to meet the global force management demands. And I would just say, I think we need a review of how we're doing global force management, because obviously, and there's been articles written. I mean, Admiral Fogo wrote a great article years ago about it. I don't think we fully understood. So, for instance, look what's happening with the 26 MU and Bataan ARG out right now. So they just got recently extended again. We don't know when they're going to be returning, but just understand the ramifications of that, specifically from my perspective on maintenance avails and everything else that those ships need. So I think we need to go in eyes wide open, that we use equipment, we wear equipment out, and there will be second and third order effects that are going to impact us more and more down the road. And quite frankly, the global force management, specifically from the 26 MU, are we losing faith with some of our people, right? Because we're going to have some Marines out there that I guarantee you are going to be bumping up against their end of active service, and now they're being extended. So this global force management question you asked, sir, we could sit here and talk about for the rest of the West Conference and not get to conclude. But I think what we need to do from a joint perspective is we need to relook at how we're doing global force management, quite frankly.
No, good comment. Admiral Cheever, the NDA just came out and it decremented us 1 air wing. It seems like that's a direction that surprised me. Are we ready for that? And how do you feel about the force generation aspect?
Yeah, so as far as 9 air wings go, I think that's a good number.
11 carriers, 9 air wings makes sense in my simple head of what you need to be able to deploy. I think we're doing good right now, but we're a learning organization, so there's a lot to look at and a lot to learn and a lot to get better at for fourth generation. So it's always worth a look to see how you best do that. I'll echo the impact of extensions, but sometimes the world gets a vote, and when the Ike's on station or the Ford's on station and they need to extend you a couple months, we can give the risk for that for future maintenance and some of those things, but sometimes the world gets a vote and you need those assets there. And if one of the measures is respond in crisis, per the CNO's guidance, and we are responding in crisis, and when the crisis happens, I mean, they ask, where are the carrier strike groups? And our teams combine, so we need a carrier strike group. It's not just the carrier, it's the DGGs and the other folks that come. It's space and cyber that come with us. It's the subs that come, so it's the whole 9 yards. But yeah, I think we respond in crisis for the fourth generation, but worth a look and to see where we're going. And I think there are a lot more senior people than me that are taking a look at that.
Yes. I just remember when I was going through command training, and you have mentors come up and they say, don't ever put yourself to exhaustion for sleep, thinking that now I'm going to get rest, because it's right at that moment that you'll be asked to do more. And some of the things that are going on right now strike me that way.
As an aviator, I'm very good at crew rest. 8 hours.
Thank you. Ms. Nashold, I understand that the IW4 just took over the responsibility for doing manned training equipment for the MOCs, among other things. And IW seems like one of those areas where, what have you done for me lately, and could you just do more? Would you comment on fourth generation and the ability to sustain?
So thank you for that question. So the first thing I wanted to highlight is when, from a TICOM perspective, our mission has expanded since we first stood up in 2014. Originally, we stood up as we were supporting all of our shore IW commands. So Fleet Cyber Command, 10th Fleet, Office of Naval Intelligence, and then our Meteorology and Oceanography commands. And we were providing support to the platform TICOMs. But as we've grown, one of the new taskings we've gotten is becoming the type commander, so supporting the MT&E, man, train, and equip for the maritime operations centers across the globe. And one thing that was, as our maritime operations centers, which are key to distributed maritime operations, they all stood up differently. They all grew up on their own, depending on the regional mission they were supporting, whether it was for the 4-star fleet commanders or the numbered fleet commanders. And they did not have any advocacy for alignment with respect to manning, training, and equipping. And so about a year and a half ago, we stood up as the type commander for the Maritime Operations Centers, and we've moved out in a number of initiatives. We're aligning all of our manpower to the MOCs. We're establishing UX for those. We're coming up with readiness metrics and mission essential task lists. We're getting all of the MOCs into the Defense Readiness Reporting System and basically laying the foundation for everything that a type commander does. In our own respective areas. We're doing those for the Maritime Operations Center. So learning along the way, but an exciting journey for Naval Information Forces.
Thank you. And for Admiral McLean, of course, you've got a big fourth generation mantle to take care of. And recently, Fleet Forces set a different number, like notwithstanding, it sounds very legal, but notwithstanding the above, you got to have these 75 ships ready to go. How do you square that, and do you feel you have the flexibility you need to meet demand?
So that's a great question. I quibble with it a bit. I would say North Star 75 is something that we came up with between Admiral Kitchener and myself. Like, that is the number derived from the directed readiness tables of the ships that we're going to need to have ready to go. And Fleet Forces has championed that for us.
So it really came from you all.
It did. And then to your OFRP question, the way I explain OFRP to my commanding officers is it's like the seasons of the year if we were in Game of Thrones. right? So spring is training and certification, summer's deployment, everybody loves summer. Fall is sustainment, and to General Heckle's point, sometimes sustainment gets eaten up by the summertime. And winter is the maintenance phase, and winter is coming. So when I say that, it's not a linear 12-month year, but a 36-month year, and it's working for us. We certainly innovate inside the framework of it. I would just use two examples to what Andres said about the world gets a vote. We have surge ships for the Red Sea operation, but we've also kept an eye on their maintenance requirements on the back end. So when it came to deciding, are we going to bring Ramage back to start the Avail on time, or are we going to extend her? The decision was made. We're going to surge somebody else. We're going to bring Ramage back on time because she had a really long Avail and a home port shift all on the back end. So we can innovate inside that. And then the points on global force management are well taken. We came up with Task Group Greyhound to have 4 destroyers to make 2 at any time. And that has really stood us well. That idea that came up by 2 Surfline predecessors before me, and we were able to really get after. We've used that both in the RFF for EUCOM at the very beginning of the Ukraine crisis, and subsequently over and over again.
Thank you. Admiral Andros, want to take that on about force generation when people between cycles are asking you to recover Chinese balloons off, South Carolina and other things. How do you deal with that?
I think just if you look at if the OFRP is flexible enough to make changes along the way. I think it is if some of the assumptions going into it are met. Right? If you've got the consistent demand signal on the back end of what you need to produce, and if you're getting the maintenance and the people there on time, it's flexible enough. But if it comes off just a little bit, if it just wobbles a bit, and those build up over time, then you've got to do other things. So I think there's enough wobbles in this one that I've changed the way that I've looked at it. And I think the OFRP, if I just had to produce the IRF over and over and over again, the immediate response force requirements, it works. But to get to it to sustain the IRF and the SURF, then I cannot break those teams up. I can't get them back off of deployment and then take them off. And that's where the friction starts happening as a force generator, I think. So I've started to really look at it a different way of, all right, if we're gonna go, is it a presence requirement? Because that's a good thing for the OFRP. Or is the fleet commander or the joint commander trying to get some kind of outcome? And asking that question first, what's the outcome? Because if it's a CB battalion doing an OAI, and it's a long-term construction project, it may be better not to put them forward, but to give one CB, and not rotate through CB battalions, but give it to one and keep them in Port Hueneme, and then have it go through. So I think the other piece of it, the way I'm looking at it now, is what's the ASABO that I have to generate, and to be able to get the SURF and the IRF out the door with the resources that I have. So if I've got 100% of my equipment and 100% of my people, it equals this much that I've got to generate and how long I have to keep it together, and this is how long the OFRP has to do. And so keep looking at what that long pole or short pole is it equipment or people, then bring it down to 90, 80, and 70. And if we look at it from what's the ASABO we have to generate, which is kind of the output of what we think of with the OFRP, is now the input, then we can become more flexible.
Thank you. Admiral Davis, I think we already heard from you on force generation, but do you have like one thing that's different about being Blue SEALs again, or at least supporting that mission?
Hey, thanks, sir. I guess one thing I would offer is I don't have the same problem as some of my colleagues in terms of national capital assets I need to maintain. Although increasingly with our dry combat submersible and the new SDVs, they're increasingly complex. But we tend to think about deploying and burning readiness. We've really been looking at, again, partnering with high-end partners. How can I meet the GCC campaign requirements and actually build readiness while deployed?
Right. Thank you. Just a couple of lightning crowd things, and we're going to leave time for the audience. But, a lot of attention for the Air Boss's question on CMV-22 and the impact it's having. Could you just give us a couple of groups on that? For those who don't know, the grounding of those aircraft as a type has hurt the carrier onboard delivery.
Yeah, so for carry-on board delivery, critical mission, everybody knows that. We are sundowning the C2 Greyhound that's been the workhorse for years and years and years. They're not sundown yet, so we're maintaining that capability and capacity as we go through this. The investigation's ongoing. The grounding bulletin remains in place. But there's a lot of learning going on, and I applaud AFSOC, our Air Force brothers and sisters, the Marine Corps, and the Navy for teaming with everybody to really explore this space and make sure we have a safe, effective platform moving forward. And that's the journey we're on, and I think we'll get there.
Thank you. And a quick one for the SWO boss. I noticed recently, as somebody who did a point defense engagement when I was a CO at DDG, that Gravely did a close-in weapon system engagement. And, it strikes me that they're sitting there in a WES. You commented on this the other day. But how are we looking at the sustainable ammunition piece going forward? Are we learning about what to apply to what, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it sure does. I would say we're still looking at Gravely. You know, she's a baseline 7 ship. That class or that baseline doesn't have over-the-air transfer of the data, so we've done unnatural acts to get the tapes back to Dahlgren as quickly as possible. So we're looking at that. I would say our ships have layered defense systems. CWIS is part of that. The system worked in this case. And we're going to learn from that and then apply it to everybody else.
I guess it might be too early to ask this, but I noticed we took the mounts off the later ships in the class. I think the ability to bolt it on is still there. Is that something that's in the mix, potentially?
So I think we are committed to terminal point defense, whether that's CWIS or RAM. We're looking at that as we're developing.
Got it. Just a quick, I need 1 minute from you. If you look at the information that's coming out on morale, retention, recruiting, some of it sounds grim, and yet I've also heard comments that morale is excellent and people feel good about what they're doing, and there's probably the truth in both. I just thought I'd get less than a minute from each of you on how do you see the tone and the spirit and the mood of your forces. I'll start with General Heckel.
I go to speak to every basic school class at the basic school down in Quantico. Last time I spoke last week, about almost 300 second lieutenants to include allies and partners. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Marine Corps does not have a morale problem. And I think as long as the Marine Corps stays focused on, being a Marine and becoming a Marine and not joining the Marine Corps, and like I had to correct some of my compadres that work with me about they wanted to name an entity after a piece of equipment. I'm like, we don't do that. We equip Marines, we don't man equipment. So we're not, as you know, we're doing okay on recruiting. It's all a challenge for all of us. It's something we got to tackle together. But morale-wise, sir, we're not having a problem in the Marine Corps.
Excellent. Admiral Cheever?
So I had a son who was a sailor. So it depended on the day when I talked to him how his morale was doing, right? That's a journey. I will say that what the CNO and the team at a very high level doing for quality of life and quality of service is like nothing I've ever seen before. They're putting real resources and real effort behind this. My number one kind of thought coming in as your air boss is the treatment of our sailors and our team is absolutely key to back that quality of service and quality of life up. So I think we're on the right path.
Got it. And before I go to Ms. Nashville, I want to tell you we're going to start audience questions. Think about your question. We've got a microphone center of place here, and our only rule is you got to say who you are and you got to ask a question quickly. Over to you, Ms. Nashville.
So I'll just quote Admiral Ashback in saying that from an IW perspective, our IW sailors, which when you think of when the number is 63,000 wide, they provide our asymmetric advantage. And so when you think about information warfare, I'll just harken back to the Red Sea and just starting with Carney, which was the first ship. Carney was ready on day one, and on 3 pillars that we organize around in IW, which is battle space awareness, assured C2, and integrated fires. Every one of those mission sets was involved in Kearney's defense. And so our sailors are very motivated, and they're very dedicated to their mission today.
Thank you. SWOBOS.
Yep, thank you. So on the topic of Kearney, their first engagement was on the 19th of October. On the 21st of October, Captain Robertson had 15 reenlistment contracts on his desk. So the morale on Kearney and our ships in the Red Sea and all of our ships on deployment is incredibly high. That's what sailors join the Navy for, is to go on deployment. It's the challenge that we have in the maintenance phase, where when you join the Navy, you never really think about the maintenance phase. That's no doubt very difficult. The things that Admiral Cheever mentioned are those investments are going on, not just in Newport News, but across the fleet. We've here in San Diego, we're doing really well, particularly with embedded mental health, with our program of getting a chaplain on every ship, and then really teaching our senior wardroom and chief's mess leaders about warrior toughness, which is being taught at RTC going back to like 2018, mind, body, spirit, having all three components you're going to need to be a resilient sailor.
Thank you. Admiral Andros.
Thanks, sir. When I go out and I look at sailors and retention and the places, there's variance across the force, as one would expect. But the places that I see where retention's high are where the sailors know their job. They trust that their immediate leader, whether that be a chief or junior officer, department head, knows their job and has their best interest of that sailor in mind. And where they're actually doing their job. When they get to do their profession, like SWOBOS said, they get excited and they want to be a part of it. And then the last one is, it really comes down to every command I go to is the strong chief's mess, the chiefs that know what they're doing, and they take on that sailor as an individual, as a sailor in the United States Navy, and it's under their charge to get them right and get them on path to get their job done, is where I see the best retention.
Thank you. Admiral Davids, NSW.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm pretty blessed. I get to be a part of a team that has really highly motivated folks who really just want to make an impact. The demographic in our community has changed significantly. I don't think I'd even get a spot to go to BUD/S today. The majority of our enlisted sailors already have a 2 or 4 year degree by the time they graduate from BUD/S, so the demographic has changed. I don't have a problem at sea duty. In fact, I'm 100% manned at sea duty, which I think speaks volumes about the morale. My problem is getting people to go to shore. That's where we're undermanned. So we got a little different problem, a little different demographic. I would have thought that as we transition from this counterterrorism with all the, people have a mental model of what it means maybe to come in and be a naval commando. And the mission has changed, and would people embrace it? And what I found is if they see purpose and they're part of a high-performing team, they're all in. So retention's good with one caveat, and that is, people that came in right after 9/11 are tired. And so there's a cohort that's just over 20 years that have served honorably, and I think they're ready for another adventure, and there's some of them probably in the audience today.
Got it. Thank you. We're open for questions. If anybody wants to come to the mic and ask a question, and we use the mic so people can hear it. Sounds like we have a taker here. Megan Eckstein.
Hi everybody, Megan Eckstein with Defense News. A few of you have addressed the Red Sea engagements. I know there will be a continuous learning process from that, but I wonder just sort of your first impressions. The engagements, have they been fairly textbook, do you think? Is everything going according to how the training has gone, or have there been any surprises, either good or bad, that you've seen in some of these engagements?
Thank you, Megan. There was a really good piece in the Military Times that chronicled every engagement that we have had that came out this morning. And when you read through that, you'll see that it has changed. The 19 October engagement were drones and land attack cruise missiles that were shot at long distance. Some of the more recent engagements are anti-ship cruise missiles and anti-ship ballistic missiles for the first time, which have a much shorter reaction time for our ships. So I mentioned before that the ships that we have in the southern Red Sea are in the weapons engagement zone, and they're going to have to be able to react very quickly, much more now than they did in, let's say, October.
If I could add real quick, you saw the helicopter engagement of the boats. That was textbook. An incredible job by those crews. Decision making by really young folks, professional warfighters that made the right decisions, did the right things. And then all the air engagements, because it's a team, right? We team together to make this safe and make the threats go away. And then you think about the strikes that are going across the beach to target where these things are coming from. And I think it's very successful. That's a tight geography in there. That is not, that is not the Pacific Ocean with thousands and thousands of miles of, ocean out there. So it's a tight environment, but I think that the team, the young professional warfighters, are doing a tremendous job out there.
Air Boss, you said that was textbook, but I had a question for you. The crew's response was terrific. I would have thought that might have been a good candidate for APKWS, the guided 2.75 rockets, but I understand it was a Hellfire engagement. Is that are both of those eligible?
Yeah, anything they want to use, any way they want to use it, and however they want to destroy the enemy is good by me. And I will coin those aircrew when they...
Got it. Great job. Thanks.
So I also wanted to pile on from an IW perspective. From Admiral McLean's point, we need to increase the commander's decision space. So the battle space awareness piece and the non-kinetic effects piece for integrated fires in the end, we did bring back lessons learned. And so through our Warfighting Development Center in NIWITIC, we improved our T2Ps for the things that IW is responsible for to feed back out to the fleet. And so yes, we're increasing our proficiency every day.
Okay, thank you all very much.
So the integrated air and missile defense aspect of this is beyond just surface engagements, right? And so what I would say that the help we need from industry on this, that I know from the Marine Corps' perspective, we're working very hard, is to get on the right side of the cost curve of this thing, right? So, for instance, the Russian missile guided missile ship that was sunk by, we think, about $60,000 worth of jet skis. We've got to figure out a better way to do this, a more cost-effective way than shooting down, $40,000, $50,000 unmanned aerial vehicles with millions of dollars worth of self-defense. So we got to get on the right side of that, and that's where industry can help us.
Okay, I've got another question.
Yeah, good morning. Paul Rosbold from Systems Planning and Analysis. General Heckel already touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to hear the rest of the panel's thoughts on contested logistics, and in particular, contested and long-distance rearming.
Okay, maybe Air Boss?
Yeah, so that's one of the glories of having carriers, aircraft carriers, is you have massive amounts of capacity of weapons. So that's one of the really unique things. It is a tough thing because you got to go rearm at some point. And that's where your force generation and the amount you can put out there, nobody can get as much on the playing field as we can in a very short time with the surge force and the immediate force that goes out. But your point's valid on making sure we can do all that and get it out there.
Hey, so one additional note on that is that what we've done in the Marine Corps is we've prioritized. What I told my guys was, for these efforts going forward in a truly contested environment where we will be engaged, and I said it's got to be lethality. So this goes back to allies and partners. Our probably single greatest asymmetric advantage we have over any adversary is anything that can be pre-positioned. So we're also doing this global positioning network for the Marine Corps, and having things that allies and partners may be less concerned about you staging on their soil, logistics, food, whatever, but lethality. So we'll be doing Capstone, Project Convergence Capstone 4 kicking off soon with allies and partners in the Army out in Camp Pendleton, and we're gonna demonstrate some of that with our autonomous low-profile vessel, which it's basically a narco sub. We copied the drug runners down south, And this thing is form, fit, function to carry 2 Navy strike missiles and resupply. So that's lethality. So I think if you prioritize it, it'll help you focus on what is important.
Just to follow up here, we've already heard from General Heckel on this, and but because of this industry audience, just a quick round with Air Boss, IW, SWOBOS, and Down. What is the one thing that you'd like the most help from industry on, given our audience?
Cost, schedule, performance per the contract. That's the biggest thing. I know all of you are working through the talent management piece. The faster you get after that and the data, the better off we're all going to be to get a constant workforce out there that can turn this stuff within the contract timelines. And I appreciate all that effort.
From an information warfare perspective, I would say training. And from a training perspective, we need to get capabilities out to the fleet faster. And so we need to reduce our reliance on brick and mortar schoolhouse training. And so we ask for industry's help in, how do we do more point of presence training, videos, virtual in the cloud. That's what we need. And along with that, more software-defined solutions. Hardware takes too long. We need a window of opportunity or a CMAV, and so software-defined solutions along with the training would be much appreciated.
SWOBOS.
So I would agree with Undra on time, on budget, absolutely. And then the things that are foremost in my mind are directed energy weapons, conventional prompt strike, and integrated combat system are the things that have to deliver for us on time.
Okay, Admiral Andros.
From a material solution to our problems, I'm looking at things that are small form factor and easy to sustain and maintain in the field. The other piece of it would be, I cannot have the force be a vulnerability to the fleet. So how do we use the information environment so that they don't know that our forces are positioned in X, Y, or Z? How do we blend in with those systems? And also with those systems that we're talking to each other on is, how can I take one of my human beings and help out Keith or help out Liz? So there's a kind of a system across it. We got configuration management and we're not a one-off.
And Admiral Davids. Quickly.
I've got a lot of requirements, but I think what is going to be decisive and where I'm looking for help is in decision advantage. So we have access to more information now than ever, and it's almost overwhelming. No, it's not almost. It's overwhelming, and trying to make sense of both exquisite information that come from through-letter agencies, whatever, but also commercially available data that's traded now and open source, and bringing that all together for decision advantage. Everybody's familiar with the OODA loop. And my view is observe, orient. I think our adversaries, competitors have closed some of that gap. Decision will be decisive, I think, going forward. Thanks.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more question. I recognize the questioner, Sam Legrand.
Hi, it's Sam Legrand from USNI News. Quick one for General Heckel. ACMAC Mahoney said last month that training was the only barrier for bringing ACV for the Boxer deployment coming up. Do you all have an update on what exactly that status is of getting those systems ready to go on deployment? Thank you.
Yeah, so ACV is doing well. We do have some milestones. I think you specifically said training for the ACV deployment. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we're getting after that. And I don't want to get in front of Lieutenant General Imes, but we have a pretty methodical way forward on how we're going to get the ACV out. And as you know, we're getting it out to 3MF. We're getting it out to the priority theater right now. It's going to be a great vehicle. We had some issues that we didn't quite expect, but we've overcome those already. And we're obviously the number one concern at this point is, we can field the vehicle. We just can't go through the surf zone right now until we get the training done. And but we're fielding the capability time now. Did that answer the question for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I lied. We have 30 more minutes. Next question.
I was about to say.
Could you comment on lessons learned from Black Sea operations in the Ukrainian war, both on the offensive and defensive side? How can we apply what we saw the Ukrainians and the Russians did right and what they did wrong?
Maybe General Heckel.
Well, I'll just start off with I think it really so it's a great question, but I think it illuminates how quickly the character of warfare is changing right now, and keeping up with it is amazing. So to me, again, I spoke to a bunch of lieutenants last week, and I played that video of that Russian ship being sunk by a bunch of jet skis. And, my first question was, I reached out to my Navy brothers and sisters. I'm like, do we have something that can stop that? And, we do. So again, it all goes back. And when I say integrated air and missile defense, to me, that's everything, right? And now imagine what we witnessed with that. Now imagine a narco sub that I just told you that we have 2 prototypes that are going to be on the West Coast in Convergence 4. Imagine a narco sub with a 400-pound shaped charge below the waterline. So the lessons learned are that I guess they're so I run this thing called this campaign of learning down at Masitic and CDNI, and it's never ending. It's not like there's nothing sequential to it. I get constant feedback from experimentation, S&T. I did DARPA review the other day. All this stuff goes into it. And I guess the one thing I'm telling you is we can't go fast enough to keep up with the changing character of war. And so we got to keep. That's the biggest lesson for me, is staying in front of this thing, because it's changing that quickly. And it's more than just in the typical sense of integrated air and missile defense. It's beyond that.
We got, I think Air Boss and SWO Boss have something. Air Boss first.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's all about logistics as you watch this thing. The operational environment matters. So I keep an eye on that and compare that to other operational environments you might find yourself in. That's a pretty tight environment right there. And then I look at the Ukraine for the innovation and creativity and speed with which they're turning within industry and putting stuff out there. That's pretty fascinating to watch and see how we can do that from a policy perspective moving forward.
Yeah, I guess what I would add is just to point out perhaps the obvious, that it may be counterintuitive, but the unmanned surface threats are sometimes harder to deal with than the air ones. And I think we saw that with the Moskva. So we're practicing both and simultaneous now in SWAT. So we're taking our ships through reps and sets on having to fight both at the same time to make that complexity difficult. And then we're also putting a lot more emphasis on damage control. I mean, that was a lesson learned from Moscow, that they were not ready on the damage control side. So, we frequently in the Surface Navy practice our oil-based or gasoline-based fires, what we call Class Bravo fires, in the main engine room. So we're shifting that to topside now. So if you recall back to the Falklands or Arabian Gulf in the 80s, both of those Exocet hits, the fires that came from them were from the fuel of the rocket, not the rocket head exploding. So we're going back to that and practicing a lot more topside Class Bravo firefighting.
And, hey, just one more, and then everybody knows, I should have mentioned this, but has everybody seen what the Ukrainians are doing with first person view, unmanned area? I mean, cheap, super cheap, and watching their TTPs develop. Like I watched, they typically will use a section of these things, 2 of them, to destroy a piece of armor. And it's $20,000 worth of UAVs, first person view. They fly them in. It is eye watering. So.
Right, so that cost curve thing that you mentioned has a land component or
so as the naval campaign moves terrestrial, which is where we come in, this is the kind of stuff we got to be dealing with.
For sure, and for Liz Nashhold, I read in that august source of information, classified information, the Wall Street Journal the other day, that the Russians are using Starlink terminals that they've either captured or procured somehow and employed those to great effect. What does that mean for you?
So from an IW perspective, I think it just points out the need that we need to move faster. And I think just even the proliferation of Starlink for us in the fleet is points to that need, where we can't follow our traditional requirements, requirements development from TICOM to resource sponsor to acquisition to schoolhouse. We really need to move faster. And so that's one point. And then the second point I want to make is, when we do learn of those things, whatever lessons learned, and to the previous question, we need to make sure that we're organized to support. And so for IW, our Naval Information Warfighting Development Center, working across all the warfighting development centers to take those lessons learned and get them right back into the fleet so we can actually use them right away.
Right, and for Admiral Andros, something that's been on my mind is that if you're going to have a real war where ordnance hits ships, is the EOD community ready to do battle damage amelioration and fixes afloat?
I think when I look at the training that we've done over the years and the problem solving of getting after unexploded ordnance, whether it's ashore or on ships, the EOD force is going to be ready. And combined with the salvage forces of getting there on scene and taking care of the problem, they're ready. We've changed the way that we've trained. Like what Keith was saying earlier, if you'd gone back 5 years ago, you'd see a lot of counter IED problem sets and the final evaluation problem, and we've evolved those into getting back to the fleet, doing things at sea, and making sure that we've got the rendered safety ordnance so it can stay in the fight.
Thank you. Admiral Davids, anything on this topic?
Yeah, I'd like to just answer the last one if I could, because I think it's really relevant. One of the lessons from what we're seeing in Ukraine to this crowd in particular is the fact that you've got operators, technologists, engineers, all on the front line trace doing spiral development. And it's been amazing how quickly they can turn and rapidly modernize. I think that is a critical lesson. We got to create the conditions where we can do that and get that constant feedback cycle going.
I think it's great that this Ukraine thing is top of mind for all of you, because I hear more than I expected people say, well, Ukraine's not our fight, but there's so much to learn. And the spiral development piece is impressive among all the other comments. Next up, another person I recognize, Mallory Shelbourne.
Hi, Mallory Shelbourne with US 9 News. General Heckel, you voiced some concerns about amphib readiness with Bataan getting extended and how to handle global force management. For you and Admiral McLean, how would you describe the overall state of amphib readiness? And as the US Navy has to continue protecting commercial shipping in the Middle East, how are you going to balance that with priorities in the Indo-Pacific?
Good to see you, Mallory. The readiness issue is not exclusive to amphibs, right? So and I will just simply say that, during our 20 plus years of what I refer to as our Marina-stand days, where we, in my opinion only as Hazel, that the Marine Corps kind of lost its way. We kind of stepped away from being the Naval Expeditionary Force that we are required to be. But we rode all our equipment hard and put it away wet. Everybody remembers back when Mattis came in and said, I need 80% TAC air readiness, right? We were all like, what? And so we've done the same thing to the fleet. Mallory, you know this better than anybody. And so amphibs are no different. My issue for the Marine Corps is we are by law the crisis response force, right? To be a crisis response force, you have to be forward deployed and you have to be there. So we got work to do, and I will tell you, I'm not going to we don't have the PB-25 budget yet, so I'm not going to get in front of the Commander-in-Chief, but the Navy we've been really, really good partners, and I see Brad Skillman down there nodding his head, and I couldn't be happier where we are, and I think when you see it come out, you're going to be pretty happy too. So I think we're in a good spot, but my issue now, Mallory, is we're going to have gaps, everybody. So the reason 26mu has been extended is because we don't have anybody to come in behind them. So so we're doing it to the air boss's point. We do what we must do, okay? But we've got to come up with an interim solution. So I have my guys, Sean Brody, my Marine Expeditionary Warfare Division. They've developed a littoral maneuver bridging solution, and there's a lot of stuff out there. I'm working with ASNRDA. I'm working with my Navy partners with Brad and the rest. Whether it's TEPFs, we've got contracted stern landing vessels through industry. One of which will be out for Capstone 4, playing with our ALPV. We've got 2 more we're going to put on contract, and we're doing a foreign comparative test with our Australian partners. So we have a responsibility to find solutions, and we will. Did that answer it, Mallory?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Justin Katz with Breaking Defense. I wanted to riff on something that General Heckel said. He mentioned the cost problem. You can't keep shooting down $1 million missiles. I'm sorry, you can't shoot down $10,000 drones with $1 million missiles. And I'm wondering how this issue is materializing across all the TICOMs and how all of you guys are thinking about it. And I know the classic answer to this is going to be directed energy, but respectfully, directed energy isn't there for the Navy yet. There's a few prototypes and a few ships, but as General Heckel alluded to, cheap jet skis packed with explosives making their way toward destroyers, that's here right now. That's not waiting for 3 years from now.
So I'll start from an information warfare perspective. That is actually a challenge that we're working in IW. We're looking for anything that can deny, degrade, deceive, destroy from a non-kinetic effect perspective so that we can save the ammunition and the ordnance that we have. And so we, at this classification level, we do have those capabilities, and we are working to improve TTPs based on lessons learned going on right now.
The Navy has a much harder problem set here than the Marine Corps does. That's why so from our perspective, the passive measures we can do. So we're doing, as you know, EAVs first and foremost in our calculus is signature management in all its forms, right? So things that we can do to reduce the susceptibility, the vulnerability, all of those things. But for the Navy, obviously for a surface vessel, that's a much more difficult thing.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I would also kind of quibble with the premise of the question. Going back to the Moskva, I'm sure if they would have been able to shoot down those incoming unmanned surface vessels, that trade-off for a cost perspective would have been worth it. So I think that when we're trading missiles for ship safety, which is what we're doing right now, I think that's a good investment. Certainly, as we advance in every possible form, I'm all for that too. But as we've shown, we've been able to get after the threat in multiple ways. We've shot down some of the drones with 5-inch, so that's been successful. And then with aviation has been able to take some of them too. So I think a layered defense working together with across the strike group is the way to go for now. And hopefully with industry's acceleration of directed energy in all forms, lasers and microwaves, we'll be able to get something soon onto our ships.
So Swoboss, I agree with your premise that when it's coming in, you don't have a process action team to say, do I want to save some money here?
Yep.
Or save the ship. But it strikes me that it's not just the cost of the weapons, it's also the reaction time, that you don't have the luxury of knowing all the time which it is. And I was wondering if you could just, at an unclassed level, just give the audience a sense of the reaction times out there for the ships in the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea.
Thank you. So if you can imagine, for the ships that are in the southern Red Sea, if a cruise missile, which is coming in low, or a anti-ship ballistic missile, which is coming in very high, is shot at you, based on the geography, you only have seconds to detect it,
right,
track it, and engage it. And we're talking, somewhere between 60 and 90 seconds to be able to complete that kill chain and shoot off your defenses.
Right, and as far as I know, isn't this the first combat situation where we've taken on ASBMs?
That's correct, it is.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And, okay, next question.
Hi, I'm Jeff Zazulowicz. I'm the editor with Navy Times. First of all, Swoboss, thanks for shouting out our Navy Houthi tracker. For anybody who's interested in seeing that, you can go to NavyTimes.com, and we got a pretty comprehensive list of CENTCOM confirmed intercepts dating back to October. A lot of my colleagues asked a lot of the good questions, kind of Red Sea related, that I was going to ask. But in terms of how long the Houthis can keep this up, can you give us any kind of assessment of weapons stores? Are there, any actions, hitting supply so that maybe eventually they run out? Or are they just sitting on, end over end, munitions, and they can, fire these kind of as long as they wish? Thank you all. I guess that'd probably be mainly Swoboss, maybe a little bit of Airboss. So thanks.
I think that's a great question for intelligence and the Central Command commander kind of folks. I'll just say, hey, we're going to degrade them and do what we need to do to make this right. So, and we're going to, what we need to do is get shipping through that Red Sea without interruption. That's what we need to do for the entire free world. So that's what they're trying to stop. That's not going to fly with the Western world. So we're going to keep that shipping open and make it, sea control so that we can go through there. Anybody can go through there. I mean, for God's sakes, it's international commerce. You should be able to go through there without worrying of a unmanned thing coming at you or a missile coming at you. I mean, that's just right. That's rules-based international order. That's what we all stand for. That's what every ally and partner, everybody stands for that. So I think that's the big picture here. And I wish I could answer because I should be smarter than that, but I don't know how much stocks they have and that kind of stuff, and if anybody's helping them.
I like the "that's not gonna fly" line. Well played, Andra. No, what I could say to that is that we're committed to the freedom of navigation in the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, as in all choke points around the world. And Operation Prosperity Guardian is there to get international shipping through that safely. So we're committed to that, and that's all I'm going to say.
I think you'd have to assume they've got a lot, right? So I mean, they've now aligned themselves. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, they're all helping each other. So I think the wise decision would be to approach this from worst case scenario, right? And then we have to offer feasible solutions. And that's why I kept talking about trying to get on the right side of this cost curve. We don't know how long this is going to go. And I read an article a couple weeks ago about a container going from Shanghai to Rotterdam. The cost was up 158%. So that to the boss's point about the impact on international trade, which eventually trickles down to all of us and to the American citizens and to the international community writ large. So we got big things to worry about here. And yet, even though with the success of the United States Navy and our allies and partners in the Red Sea, we still don't have commercial vessels going through the Bab el-Mandeb, right?
Yeah, nobody's raised their hand to put an LNG tanker through there anytime soon. Admiral Davis, did you have something?
The only thing I would add to that was just a reminder that your Navy is doing maritime interdiction operations and intercepting the Iranian conventional weapons on their way to the Houthis.
Okay, next question, sir.
Thank you. Konstantin Turopin with military.com. Just wanted to circle back to something that Vice Admiral Cheever mentioned sort of at the top of his remarks about impacts of the V-22 grounding on all the branches that fly the aircraft. Can you guys go into any more specifics about the impact that you've seen as a result of that grounding that is now months long?
Yeah, lucky for the Navy that the C-2 Greyhound is still available. So limited operational impacts at this point, but there are operational impacts. And as you look into the future, significant operational impacts if we can't get back and all that kind of stuff. So that's where we're at. That's the journey we're on, and we need to make it safe and effective platform moving forward. So we're in a position right now that we can handle it for now as we get back to flight.
For the Marine Corps, there's a lot more operational impact, right? So it's whether it's the MV-22s that are forward deployed to the Crisis Response Force, not being able to fly, to the 31st MEU, to the MEU deployed right now, to 26 MEU. All of these are dramatic impacts.
For the Air Boss, I wanted to ask you, do we have any C-2s in the desert, or are we Winchester? Are there C-2s that are put away that could be brought out? Or
there are. We've sent some to the desert, wrapped them up and that kind of stuff. I think we're a long way from any of those decisions and that kind of stuff. So right now we're in a good place where we're at. But there are some. And to say I'm bought in 100% to the safety aspects of this, my son's first lieutenant, Cheever, Marine Corps. And so, yeah, we are 100% in this together.
Okay, well, I thought since we seem to have answered the audience's questions, I thought we'd just wrap up the last few minutes. We're almost done. With just go through the panel one time and say, is there something that you think it's important for our audience to hear, or a point you'd like to fall back on that's important to you and your community responsibilities? Start with General Heckel.
Yes, Admiral Grady Daly, thanks again, and I appreciate you doing this. And so I would just say from a very like 60,000 foot blood boiling level, I mean, it's like when we put forward, when I present solutions, whether it's to the commandant or to the joint staff, they have to be feasible, right? So I have to present feasible solutions, the relevant force. For a solution to be feasible, putting on my planner hat, the assumptions have to be valid, and the constraints and restraints have to be respected. So when I work with my industry partners, which I do a lot, those things need to be forever in your mindset as we go through this, because this is a team effort, right? So when we step off and we make assumptions about a piece of kit or a TTP or a procedure we're going to employ, those things need to be valid, right? Or I now present my leadership
and the third deck and the White House with an infeasible solution, which is not something I do.
Thank you. Air Boss.
Yeah, a couple things. I talked a lot about carrier strike groups and that piece of it. We have Poseidon aircraft. We have Triton aircraft out there, both manned and unmanned, that are doing amazing things for anti-submarine warfare and a whole bunch of other mission sets that's truly amazing. We have Strategic Communications Wing 1 that I conducted the change of command the day I became the Air Boss for them. And if you don't know what that mission is, that is a significant mission for all of our sake. So there's a lot of things going on in naval aviation. I'll just say for industry that it's not business as usual. We are looking at all assumptions, and we're ready to talk about anything and any changes that will make us faster, better, stronger. Even if it's policy and instructions and those kind of things, we are willing to have all the discussions because it's not business as usual. The last thing I'll say is, when I go to teams and talk, or at least so far, I say, hey, give me 5 things you love about the Navy, and then 5 things that we can help you with. And when I talk about the 5 things, they immediately start talking about camaraderie, the mission, teamwork, our nation. This young cadre of warfighting professionals has the same zeal, the same energy that we did when we came in. So we owe it to them to make this a great place to serve for everybody's sake. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Nashel from IW4.
So I'll just finish by saying, when it comes to our competition, the entity that can sense, make sense, and act faster wins. And so information warfare is important to decision advantage. And when it comes to industry partners, you are key to information warfare, and you are key to decision advantage. And I'll just highlight again, we are very focused on the training aspect, because for us, training needs to lead to proficiency. And so anything that industry can do to help, whether it's LVC or delivering faster point of presence training or software-defined solutions, that's going to be a key enabler for us.
Swobos.
Thank you. 2 comments on how we're rapidly learning to Paul Rospold's question earlier about contested logistics. Last week, I was involved with Keen Edge 24, which is a war game out in the Pacific. I was in charge of the logistics task force. There was lots of rapid learning that we did in that command post exercise that we're now going to test during RIMPAC when it comes to both the oilers that are manufactured and built here in San Diego to also the contracted console tankers that MSC operates around the world, and partnering with Admiral Sobek's forces to be able to do that, come up with new and innovative ways to be able to tackle the contested logistics problem. And then the second part to the question of amphib readiness, I appreciate General Hagel's points. 2 of the things that we're doing in the surface community to really get after that as institutional commitments is, one is standing up our readiness operations centers that we've learned about from Airland, and we're applying to the surface forces to be able to kind of in the next step really get after avail maintenance. And the second one is on the 14th of December, we stood up our surface readiness groups, which 8 around the world that own our ships for the maintenance and training phase. We've got dedicated talent to task so that we can get better at that.
Thank you. I know that's important. Admiral Andros.
From an NECC perspective, as we're developing material solutions, that the finished product is rapidly adaptable to the changing environment. We cannot be taking the equipment that we do receive offline for a long period of time. As the technology of the threat just keeps going up, we've got to be able to pull something in, quickly update it either over the air or while it's in combat or in OS, or as we're doing a little bit of intermediate level maintenance on it. The last piece is just that connection between unmanned and then processing all the information that we're going to get from the unmanned. And our artificial intelligence, it needs to get up on step, and we need to get everything we can to process all this data that we're collecting with our unmanned systems, and not let that processing now be the long pole. And then the last piece is just looking at anything that we're doing with ready relevant learning, getting the sailors that know the job they're going into and can operate the equipment that they're going to walk when they walk across the quarterdeck, and not putting that burden back on the CEO of a unit to get them trained up is important. So all solutions tied in with ready relevant learning.
Thank you. Thank you. NSW, Admiral Davids.
Yeah, thanks. So, like I mentioned earlier, we're really interested in leveraging our maritime access and placement to deliver asymmetric effects for the fleet. So I need help with stealth, precision, scale, and decision advantage. I think I've got probably the largest portfolio of unmanned systems in multiple domains just by virtue of where we've been over the last 20 years. And I think we sort of think of ourselves as a little bit of a venture capitalist or pathfinder for the Navy. So looking forward to partnering with many of you with new ideas and concepts, because a lot of times we think about stuff, but it's the application of things too that also can be transformative. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should give these impressive leaders a big hand. They're balancing a lot. And we thank them for their time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lieutenant General U.S. Army retired Susan Lawrence, AFCEA International, President and CEO, to the stage.
Thank you very much. Admiral Daly, panel members, that was exciting, impressive. The partnership, the coordination, it just comes through in each of the lanes that you're responsible for, so thank you very much. At this time, I do want to just take a short minute to recognize my partner. For many years, I first served with Admiral Daly. 21 years ago, we were both 10 at the time when we did that, but unfortunately, or fortunately, he's earned it. Admiral Daly retired last year as the CEO and publisher of the U.S. Naval Institute. So on behalf of the leadership of AFCEA International, we have a small token of our appreciation. We are extremely proud of our award-winning Signal magazine. So when a leader departs the AFCEA team, we create a mock cover for this. And so with Admiral Daly, we had a good time. So first of all, we know how much work went into the Jack C. Taylor Conference Center. It was under your leadership that built that beautiful facility, and we really, really appreciate all that you have done. We have a place now to go to with that amazing conference center that you have there. And one of the trips up there, we meet periodically. I don't know how we got started on the subjects of cats, so he presented us the book, Cats from the Navy, and of course he's extremely allergic to cats.
Hate cats.
Hates cats. Damn the allergies, full speed ahead. We predict Admiral Daly is going to stand up a cat sanctuary petting zoo there at the Naval Academy. We also know how proud you are of your command at the destroyer USS Russell and all that he did during his time there as we went through this. So we just took liberty to do a little play with the Caine Mutiny here. A crew assigned to an old, worse for the wear vessel called the USS Russell is led by Vice Admiral Pete Daly and faces dangerous storms and possible mutiny in the 7-time Academy Award. And of course, Admiral Daly is played by Humphrey Bogart. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you. So again, thank you to this incredible panel for taking the time to join us today. And we would like to present you as a token of our appreciation from the U.S. Naval Institute and AFCEA International, the book, Mars Adapting by Frank Hoffman. So again, thank you so much for your time.